Most strategies, unfortunately, fail, but not for the reason that you might think. Many people have said that strategy is just a dream. It's just words. If you don't have execution, then strategy means nothing. And I agree with that. But I'd also say that executing without the vision that strategy gives you is a nightmare. So you need both, right? You need both the vision and the action. Unfortunately, the two often don't meet, and it's not for the reason that you might think. You might think that the reason a strategy doesn't happen is because of execution. But in my experience, and I've been in strategy for over 20 years, I've been applying the Outthinker process for about 15 years. There's a lot I don't know about, but at least in the area of applying the methodology to strategy, I've got to be an idiot not to have learned something about it. In my experience, it's not execution. It's something else. Let me give you an example. So Jim is an entrepreneur, a business owner. He's been quite successful. He owns a company that installs lighting into retail spaces. So if Walmart or if Kroger are building a new store, they might call Jim's company, and they likely would because he's one of the best known such companies in the United States. They might call his company and he would install it. Now he has executed quite at a substantial scale. His company is something like 50 to 60 million. Everything I say here, by the way, that's client related, I am obfuscating a little bit and changing a little bit so that I'm not revealing anything proprietary. So about 50 to 60 million. And he's got a couple hundred employees. He's got warehouses. He's got a sales force. He can execute. Now we worked with him, we developed a strategy, and he came up with one that potentially could be transformative, a new pivot to his business. He estimated, we agreed with him, that it would add 50% new revenue over the next 3 to 5 years. His employees and top team agreed with it. He went to clients and they liked the idea. They were ready to buy the idea. All green lights. There are a number of questions that if we get to work with, we'll go through, but a number of questions that you need to ask to assess whether an idea is one that's worth pursuing, and he got green lights on all those questions. Now, what happened? 3 to 5 years, his business isn't any bigger. That idea went nowhere. It didn't die in the market. It died before it could even get to the market. And this happens so often. But let's compare this to Bob. Bob owns an accounting firm, similar size, about 50 to 60 million. He'd been doing it for a similar amount of time, about 15, 20, 25 years. He also has several hundred employees. He also has significant operations and a sales force he can execute. We applied the same methodology to him. His team came up with an idea. They implemented that idea, and after 3 years of getting zero growth, for the last 4 years they've been growing at 30% a year. Now, what's the difference between these two? See, that you have to say that the difference is, in this case, is not execution. They both are effective executors. Their teams are effective executors. I would say that it is because when you're designing a strategy, there's a critical stage in the strategy when the strategy starts turning from idea to action. In the Outthinker process, we call that the analyze phase. That's the 4th step in the 5-step I.D.E.A.S process, analyze. Think of it this way. In order to grow, you need to conceive of new ideas, you need to consider those ideas, you need to choose them, and then you have to commit to them. Now, you may be able to commit to them, which is the execution phase. You may be able to conceive of them, you may be able to consider them, but if you don't choose them, then you're not going to be able to execute them. You won't know what to execute. And this, unfortunately, is where many strategies fall short. They don't allow us, they don't force us to actually make the choices that we need to make to execute the strategy. And strategy is all about choices. It's about choosing what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. And that is difficult because we often resist wanting to decide what we're not going to choose. See, when we do something new, when we add something new to strategy, we can only do that by doing one of two things. One is to stop doing something we're already doing, and the other one is to get more resources, both money and time, in order to do them. We can't just keep piling our plate. We got to either take something off or we need a bigger plate. And we resist deciding what to take off the plate. And so we add something on and we're not actually committing to it. See, Bob had real clarity on what he was choosing. He was essentially choosing not to be an accounting firm anymore, but instead to be a leadership firm. Notice that. He's not saying we're going to be a leadership firm and an accounting firm. He's saying I'm not going to be an accounting firm anymore, even though that's what I've been for the last 15, 20, 25 years. I'm not going to be that. I'm leaving that behind. Instead, I'm going to be a leadership firm. And that means I have to do three things differently. One is I need to start delivering as a leadership firm, not an accounting firm. I need to start providing accountants to operate under your CFO rather than trying to sell you a senior partner reports to manages a junior partner, manages an associate, that whole pyramid, right? We're going to get rid of that. The second thing is we're going to recruit differently. We're not just going to recruit great accountants, but we're going to recruit people who have the potential to be future leaders in accounting, future CFOs. The third is we're going to train differently. We're not just going to train on the technical skills needed to do accounting well, but we're going to train you on those soft skills, those influence skills that will enable you to be a future CFO. Three things, and notice for each of those are things that we're not going to be doing. And the difference, as I said, is remarkable. Once you commit, once you're clear on what you're choosing, boom, growth starts taking off. 30% growth for 4 years in a row and counting. So how do you choose? Well, let me tell you what you need to do. And I'm going to illustrate it by describing another client for you. This is a company that manufactures windows. And they manufacture those windows and distribute them through mom and pop stores who then sell them either to people who are building a home or construction companies or contractors. And their problem was that the mom and pop stores that distribute their windows, they don't want to sell too many of their windows. See, they're worried that if the percentage of what they sell goes above some amount, I'm just going to make up the number, 20%, if they start selling more than 20% of one manufacturer's windows, then that manufacturer is going to start building bargaining power over them, and you're going to start squeezing them. If you distribute anything, you probably understand this concept that you need to manage your diversify your supplier base. Otherwise, you lose bargaining power. You get too dependent on supplier. And so this was putting a ceiling on this company's growth. They had been successful in signing up lots of mom and pop stores, but now there weren't as many mom and pop stores to sign up, which put a ceiling on their growth. So what they did was they applied the Outthinker process and they generated a bunch of ideas, and then they sorted them into 4 buckets. These are the 4 buckets that you want to take your ideas and sort them into. You want to know which are your wastes of time, what are your tactics, what are your winning moves, and what are your crazy ideas. Waste of time, tactics, winning moves, crazy ideas. So let's break down each of these. So waste of time. These are difficult to implement, low impact ideas. And here is my challenge for you, is that you need to include on your list things that you and your team and your company are currently investing resources into. Often when we apply this, if someone comes up with an idea, then a company or a leader will say, oh, we're already doing that, so don't write it down. And that is one of the biggest mistakes of strategy. Maybe even the fundamental mistake of strategy is that you don't reconsider what you're already doing. So you just keep adding things to the plate. So what we encourage you to do is even include on your list of things that you are already doing that are already working for you, and categorize them, and you will find that there are some things you're doing that are actually wastes of time relative to your full opportunity set. Now, what are you going to do with waste of time? We're going to get rid of them. And we're not only just going to put them on the back burner or deprioritize. I'm not talking about deprioritize. We're actually going to get rid of them and say we are explicitly not going to do that. This is a customer that is not actually profitable for us, and we're not going to serve them anymore. This is a channel that's not profitable. We're not going to do that anymore. This is a product that is not profitable. We're not going to sell it anymore. look what that does for our strategy. It frees us up. It liberates resources and energy and time and heartache and headache in order to invest in more profitable manner. So this company identified a few product lines that were actually unprofitable. They thought they were profitable, but if you look at how much it costs to sell them and produce them and distribute them, they're actually unprofitable. So got rid of those. Great. Hopefully you start feeling that freedom, being released, right? That the excess resources. Until we can produce excess resources, it's hard for us to grow. Next, tactics. So tactics are easy to implement low impact ideas. And the mistake that many companies make when they're designing strategy is that they confuse tactics with strategy. I'm not going to be a stickler on this. You talk to 10 different strategy experts, they'll all give you 10 different definitions. I'm just going to give you my definition that I think, I'm not saying it's the right one, but it is one that works. It helps you clarify what's strategic, what's not. If it is, whether it's important or not, strategy is not important. There are lots of things that you do important that are not strategic. If it does not differentiate you, it's not strategic. That's how I see it. If it doesn't differentiate you from your competition, so a certain type of customer will choose you instead of them, even if your price were higher, then it doesn't differentiate you. It is then a tactic. So let's take these tactics, and when you don't distinguish strategy from tactics, then you've got this long list of things and they start clogging up your strategy. They're like clouds in front of you. They prevent you from having the clarity that you need in order to accelerate your growth. So this company identified a whole bunch of tactical things that they thought were strategic. There were production improvements. There were key new lines that they had to implement. There were new marketing and branding initiatives. All important, but they don't differentiate them. They help them catch up. They help them continue to operate. So the important things to do, let's take those tactics, let's put them on a list, let's decide which ones we're going to do when and where. We're going to put them in an operating plan, we're going to do them, we're going to delegate them, we just get them done. Okay, those are tactics. So hopefully, if you've noticed, we've wasted time, we've gotten rid of those, we've freed up energy in terms of money and resources. Tactics, we've taken those out of our front window. We know that they're going to happen, but we're starting to clear the way for what's really important. The next quadrant are winning moves. Now, winning moves are things that are easy to do and would have a high impact, would get you really far towards the growth that you want to get. And these are things, when you identify them, you want to just like hug them, love them, and just go get them done. And you can do it now because you've gotten rid of some waste of time and pushed over the tactics. For this company, they identified that they could shift from producing this unprofitable window towards producing a profitable one. At first, it didn't seem like a very profitable one because it is simpler to sell and manufacture and distribute. And it's only when you consider that simplicity that you realize that this is actually a much more profitable line than the other one, which generated a lot of revenue but a little bit of profit. So, and there was also a new key territory that they could enter, in which they were underpenetrated. So great, go and do these things, prioritize them, put them in your 3 to 5 year thrusts or rocks or whatever you call them. But these are definitely 2 of your top priorities. Now, that leaves one more quadrant. We call this the crazy idea quadrant. The difficult high impact ideas, the go to the moon ideas before you know how to get to a moon. Now, what do most companies do with these ideas is they put them on the back burner because they're too expensive, they're technically not feasible, you're not sure if the regulation would allow it, they'll take a lot of time, they're slow to market, they're complex, they require capability, all of these reasons why we shouldn't do it. And then what happens is 3 years later, after coming with this great idea, we find out our competitors have implemented this idea, and they get written up on the trade journal as one of the most innovative companies in our industry. And you're thinking, well, that wasn't such an innovative idea. We had that idea 3 years ago, right? What's the difference is? The difference is, hey, we didn't do anything with it, right? What did they do with it? They kept it on their radar and they worked on how could I outsource something to reduce time to market? How can I partner to build the capabilities? How can I check the regulations to see what it would take? How can I take a crazy idea and turn it into a winning move? How do I take a crazy idea and turn it into a winning move? That is the magic. And this is where many strategies, processes fall short. They don't give you time to work on crazy ideas. Albert Einstein said, it's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer. So it is essential, learning from him, that we stay with the seemingly impossible idea, stay with a crazy idea a little bit longer in order to move it potentially into a winning move. What did this company do, this window manufacturer? They had this crazy idea, which was, what if we acquired mom and pop stores? Now we owned them, and we could have them expand the amount that they sell from 20% maybe up to 80%. 80% what they sell is our line, like a captive distributor. That alone would quadruple their business. What is the value of that? Quadruple their business without having to get one more mom and pop store onto their platform or selling their product. Wow. But that is very difficult to do because we don't have the capacity to operate all these mom and pop stores, right? We're just barely holding on, operating our core business. And two, acquiring all these companies would take a lot of capital, much more than we have. Now, what they could have done is they could have ruled that off and laughed at it, but they stayed with it. And they broke it down. They said, well, how could we overcome the barrier that we call management bandwidth? Managing all these companies. Someone came with ideas, why don't we acquire them and then hire the original owners to manage them? And we can basically tell those owners, you can already have your cash event, your liquidity event. You can already have your retirement money, and you can keep your job and keep earning money. And it's a no-brainer for many mom and pop stores. So boom, overcame that. The second is the financing. Well, they leveraged the company a little bit in order to acquire the first one. But then after they proved the model worked, they could get the capital they needed. They could go to the next bank, and they could say, the next mom and pop store, they could say, look at this past example. This mom and pop store that we bought, it was successful. We can do the same thing for you. So it was easier to acquire the next store, to convince them to sell, and it was easier to go to the bank and show the ROI on the last deal, and then it was easier to get the funding. And so that started creating a snowball. One success after another, after another, after another started snowballing, and this pretty little company relative to their total market size, they've started rolling up their industry. That alone has nearly 10x their business over the last 5 years. Think about that. There's one idea that if they hadn't executed it, would have meant that they would have, maybe maintained current performance. But because they executed it, which happened because they chose it, because they actually chose it, they now are 10 times the size that they are now. So what you want to appreciate is that there are opportunities out there, lots of opportunities. And what's keeping you from those opportunities to accelerate your growth is likely to be an unwillingness to choose. You don't want to choose because you don't want to stop doing something that you're doing now, or you don't have the ability to get the resources to add something new. And one of the big reasons why we don't make the choice, and one of the reasons that we don't set ourselves up for the choice, is because the strategic process that we follow has several flaws in it, such as not leaving time to explore crazy ideas, such as not putting what we're currently doing up against the test of whether it is still a good thing to do given the other things we could be doing. And if you overcome those, then you'll start choosing strategies to win. You'll start accelerating your growth rate, and you'll be able to more rapidly achieve the growth that you desire. So in the ideas process, imagine, dissect, expand, analyze, sell, what we're talking about is analyze here. All you got to do is take your ideas and ask, which are the tactics, which are the crazy ideas, which are the winning moves, which are the wastes of time, and appropriately address each of those. There are a bunch of sub-questions you want to ask for each of those in order to get those right. But when you get those right, and you get your North Star, and you get your priorities, and you put them in your plan, boom, magic happens. You start growing faster. This is one of my favorite things to teach, and I'm really excited to get a chance to work in depth with our next group of business leaders as part of my new online course with the Gazelle's Growth Institute. So I value your time, and so I'm not going to take a lot of it here. You can look at the website to get more details, but essentially this is a 9-week intensive dive into the Outthink the Competition concept. So over 9 weeks, I'm going to work with 50 leaders who are ready to design their next pivot, their next strategic initiative. 9 leaders who want to engineer a significant exponential acceleration in the growth rate. So each week, we're going to dive into the I.D.E.A.S framework. I.D.E.A.S stands for Imagine, Dissect, Expand, Analyze, Sell. We're going to help you focus on just the right P's that you need to in order to accelerate your growth. We're going to tackle the 36 stratagems, or 36 narratives, as some people call them. You're going to get to work in small groups with other business owners, executives, leaders who have similar profiles to you, and you're going to work together through each section of the course. So I'm looking for dedicated leaders, CEOs, presidents, business unit leaders, heads of strategy, and their team to work with in this program, because if you're not already planning your next pivot, your next move, you're probably too late. And so this is a program designed just for leaders who want to engineer that next strategic pivot. So I ask that you apply. Our team will look at your background, look at your mission, look at your vision, your experience, to make sure that you have reached the level that would position you to get the most out of this class. And so apply. All you need to do is go to growthinstitute.com/OTC, growthinstitute.com/OTC. Enrollment closes very soon, and so if you want to be one of the 50 who get a chance to work with me, and I would love to get a chance to work with you, please apply soon.